While post-traumatic stress disorder is often associated with the battlefield, first responders are not immune. But when the men and women who dedicate their lives to helping others become the ones that need help, some of them feel like they're getting a slap in the face instead. Mike now joins us as he continues his special series of reports.
Martha, it takes a lot of courage, first of all, for these first responders to admit their struggles with PTSD, and dealing with the diagnosis is very difficult. So you can imagine their shock when the help they thought that would be there for them wasn't.
A walk through the woods with camera in hand takes Stephanie Forer-Harbridge to a place of peace and quiet.
It gives me something else to think about.
And away from the noise that often clouds her thoughts.
Some days I feel like I take 5 steps ahead, and sometimes I feel like I take 20 steps back.
Her photography is an escape that helps replace the haunting images of her day job.
Just to go someplace else.
With those of nature's beauty.
It's like I've got an actual tangible thing that I can picture in my head when I'm starting to think about stuff that I want to think about.
When she's not snapping photos, Stephanie is saving lives as an EMT with Camp Douglas Rescue.
And what I do is I'm with people in the worst moment of their life most of the time. I've had a couple of really bad calls, one that's affected me quite a bit. I'll never forget it.
It was about a week before Christmas a few years back, and terrible, blinding snow and glare ice on the interstate, and one horrific crash with 2 young kids heading home for the holidays. Stephanie remembers her patient like it was yesterday.
I couldn't do anything. I had to hold her face together. And she's the same age as my daughter was at the time. And they told him that she passed, and I heard her mom scream on the phone. I never want to hear that again.
It's just one of the many calls over the years that has forever changed Stephanie.
How do you let go of that stuff? You can't let go of that stuff.
Last year, she finally decided to get help. She was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression.
It got to the point where, I don't want to say it, but I didn't see a whole lot of ways out of feeling the way I felt. It's a hard thing to talk about because we don't want to admit that we got something wrong.
Yeah, well, we'll go and take a look out there.
Stephanie's partner, Mike, retired Air National Guard and former Madison firefighter, took it hard.
One of the most difficult things for me was to actually see my partner going through the problems that are produced by PTSD. And frankly, I say a prayer for her because I worry about her.
It's not what we did, it's what happened to us. We didn't do anything. We're trying to do our job. We can't help that the nightmares keep coming.
Stephanie is not alone in her struggles with PTSD. About 1 in 10 first responders worldwide is believed to be affected by it. Onalaska police officer Jim Page is also part of that statistic.
I think it takes a lot to admit when you're having an issue.
Officer Page was diagnosed with PTSD in 2010 after shooting and injuring a suspect who was coming at him with a butcher knife. He still deals with the memories of that one night and many others on a daily basis.
To see a dead baby and to feel that dead baby in your arms, that is something that you don't forget. A little piece of each of those calls sticks with you, and it builds up.
But when both of these first responders thought they had hit the low point in their lives, dealing with their new normal, a letter arrived in the mail.
I felt like I got kicked in the gut. I felt like it didn't matter.
I was dumbstruck to find out that they could deny it.
Both Stephanie and Officer Page filed for workers' compensation through the state. Both received similar responses from their employers' insurance companies.
The letter I got said that stress, and that was in quotations, is an expected part of my job, and that they were denying any claims because of that.
They think this is stuff to be expected. We're still people. We don't get training, in EMT training, to get your mind wrapped around seeing a kid's face in pieces. You don't get training to see people's arms torn off.
Officer Page didn't work full time for 7 months while he dealt with his PTSD. And when he and his wife talked to the insurance company,
Basically, she said, had you let him stab you, you would have been covered. And I couldn't believe she said that to me.
When I talked to her, she likened my husband's job to that of a bank teller. And in reality, bank tellers are hired knowing that at some point they may be held up. And then repeated to me what she had said to him, which was the biggest insult, is that, you know, if your husband would have just let the other guy stab him, we could have covered that.
in Stephanie's case, her therapist advised she take medical leave last year to deal with her PTSD and depression. She ended up being off of work for 3 weeks without pay and never received any workers' compensation benefits either. She had waited 3 full years to get help.
I was terrified. I didn't want to take off work. I can't afford to take off work. You're already stressed enough about all this other stuff, and then you have to worry about finances on top of that and whether you're going to get taken care of.
Now these first responders are pushing for change so that other people's cries for help don't fall on deaf ears.
I know there are going to be critics that say, well, you chose to get into this profession. Absolutely I did, and I wouldn't change that. But that doesn't negate the fact that we need care that goes along with it.
I don't know what it's going to take for somebody to listen. I don't know how many people are going to have to pay the price.
Now, we did reach out to both insurance companies, and while they don't comment on specific cases, they say they follow state law when determining coverage.
I bet a lot of people didn't know that, and I first became acquainted with Stephanie because she started sharing some of her beautiful photography with me that I show at News 8 at noon every now and then. And I'm so glad she's found that as an outlet, because it really seems that that's been a really nice way for her to look at other things and look at life differently.
It has helped her a lot through all of this. And tomorrow night at 10, we're going to take a closer look at this law and what it specifically says and what one state lawmaker says needs to happen to possibly get some change in Madison.
All right, thanks a lot, Mike.